Ciao.
Biggest winner ever in this. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the biggest cash winner ever in this game, and he deserves it.
Could I lease the car? Sure. So you're right. That's what we are creatures of irrationality. Makes no sense.
Well, we like the stuff we like, right? I mean, I think that, or we like things the way we like them. I joked earlier this week, or last week, excuse me, on macOS Ken. I think. I can't remember, Chuck, because I'm doing like 16 shows a week now. 16 shows a week, seriously. 16 episodes of things a week. I can't remember which one, but I was like, yeah, I'm a creature. This will come as a shock to you. I'm particular. But I think most of us are. Hey, Chuck Joyner's here with us, everybody. Chuck Joyner, rounding out the week with us. Rounding. I say rounding because Chuck Joyner's going to spin the wheel of stuff. You've never done this before, have you?
I don't believe so, no. So I'm anxious to see what comes up, I think.
Yeah, well, sure, why not? Have you heard it, though? You know how the game is played. How I have.
Oh, yes.
Okay, I have a decision maker app. I filled it with stuff. We spin the wheel, and then you and I talk about whatever comes up on the wheel. Are you ready to play, sir? You ready to give it a try? Do you want to give it a spin?
Spin away.
One book that everybody has to read, Chuck Joyner. There is one book that everybody has to read. This is not the only book ever. This isn't even necessarily your favorite book. But if there is one book that everybody has to read, in Chuck Joyner's estimation, that book is...
If you're giving me fiction, I would say Neuromancer by William Gibson.
Interesting. Tell me why.
I think that was just such a far-reaching book back when it was written, and so much of it continues to be applicable today. I mean, there are a few things, if you go back and read it now, that seem just a little quaint, but overall, I think that the whole story holds up. The concepts hold up. Some of the societal changes we are still engaging in almost, and especially with lockdown in a lot of ways. Those things are just so prescient that I think it's just a great book, and it's one that I try to go back and reread. And by the way, reread, not listen to audiobook, but reread every year, because I just, maybe that's because that's the way I learned to love it.
I'm sorry. Did you say every year?
Yeah, every year. That's one thing I try to. Now I have an iBooks version. Okay. But yeah, just because I mean, I don't necessarily hang on every word. Maybe the way I did the first couple times, but you go back and you just remember things that and relate them to the world today. I think it's one that no one would be ill-served in spending the time to go through.
That's fascinating to me. Now, I hadn't actually said whether it was fiction or nonfiction, but you said if I'm giving you fiction, that's it. Do you have a nonfiction that you also suggest?
Yeah, and this goes more to the business side. In Search of Excellence by Tom Peters. Okay.
Can you give me 20 seconds on that?
Yeah, sure. Just because it too is such a good basic business book, and it cuts through so much of the fads that come and go in business, and just talks of so much about customer service, and that is such at the core of things. And it's I just was talking about this to someone over the weekend, that we hear so much about service. We are told that we are getting fantastic service, and at the end of the day, we get very, very little really great service. So that when you do get it, sometimes you don't even realize it because you barely recognize it. And I think that particular book really focuses on that and reminds us that is something that we should be aspiring to give and expecting to get.
Ready to give the wheel another spin?
Sure. I get 2.
No, you get 3.
Oh.
Interesting. My Hero Real. I've been doing I had both My Hero Real and My Hero Fiction on the wheel for the past few weeks, and My Hero Fiction kept coming up. And so I actually removed it from the wheel and just made the My Hero reel for this week. And I'm curious, real life can be somebody from history, can be somebody you know. Who's your hero?
That would be a tie between my mom and my dad.
Okay.
Just because they were such amazing people. They gave my sister and I so much. They made us the people we are today. Not only did I love them both, but I respected them both so much for the way they lived their lives, the way they raised their kids, the way they interacted with their friends. That's maybe that sounds corny to some folks, but I was so lucky to have the parents that I did.
Yeah, I mean, it does sound corny. I'm not going to lie. But, I mean, I would say, see, the thing is, I love the fact that you think in those terms, that you had no problem answering that question. Because if you ask me, I would absolutely say that my mom is one of those for me. My mom is under the impression that she is not very creative. She's under the impression that she's not very funny. She's under the impression that she's not very talented. And yet every funny thing that I know is born of her exposing me to Monty Python when I was far too young. I remember going to a Marx Brothers movie with my mom and my uncle and my aunt when I was way too young to know what was going on, right? But I mean, and she also is just an incredibly hilarious person, I think. She's the kind of person who will tell you she doesn't know how to do anything. But when I was a kid and I wanted to do something, I mean, she would just she'd get out scissors and we'd start figuring out how to do a thing, right? So, yeah, I get that. And I'm sort of ashamed that, I would be like, oh, is it George Washington? Is it Steve Jobs? And Chuck Joyner's like, yeah, it's my mom and dad. And I'm like, that's an awesome answer. That's an awesome answer, Chuck Joyner.
Well, thank you. It's true.
You want to do one more?
Sure, let's do it.
Here we go. While the wheel takes its interminable time winding down, I will thank Chuck Joyner for joining us this week. Don't forget, you can find MacVoices online, MacVoices.com. You can follow the show on Twitter at MacVoices, although probably the best thing to do is follow Chuck Joyner on Twitter as well, at Chuck Joyner, Joiner, at Chuck Joyner. And I wish these questions had been reversed, Chuck, because it would have been better to end with your mom and dad. Who is your favorite villain from fiction?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Thank you.
Okay, so I would. So you alluded to earlier that we were both Star Trek people. Khan.
Oh, really? Okay.
I think so. So self-centered, so revenge-oriented, so full of himself. Allegedly because of the genetic engineering, the genetic superiority thing. Yep. That, you can almost understand how someone like that would, with that kind of ego, if slighted, if beaten, could turn as viciously as he did in the films. So I think that would have to be my favorite.
For all this stuff that they're doing in Star Trek that I just don't care about now, I would love if they would go back and do the period of time on Earth when the warlords were there. Because here's the thing. Do you remember? Khan was like one of 13 warlords who had taken over Earth. And we almost never hear anything about that. That would be, when I say fun, I don't know that it would be fun, but that's an area that could be explored a bit more, I think.
Yeah, I agree. There are a couple of Star Trek novels out there that try to do some of that, explain kind of where Khan came from and the backstory behind him that are interesting. And they flesh it out a little bit.
The Eugenics Wars.
Good for you.
I read those. Well, I read the first one, and then I finally bought the second one in a used bookstore, and kept thinking, I should go back and reread the first one and then catch up, and I never did. But yeah, Khan. All right, yeah, good answer. Let's see if it's on the board, Chuck. That's actually not how this game works.